So good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I'm welcoming you to the Sunday celebration for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. And if there's anybody that's never been to a Center for Spiritual Living, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles. Whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. So to begin this morning, my wife, Becky, who's a practitioner emeritus, is going to open us with a prayer, and then Carol Gabika is going to do a reading for us.
And so I just invite everyone to turn within, to drop down into your hearts, where we know that each one of us is grateful. Grateful for life, grateful for one another. And in this place of gratitude is infinite love. And as we open up to this love, we recognize the allness of spirit. It's all powerful. It is everywhere present. It's all loving. And I'm knowing this for myself, that I am one in this divine spirit. And this is who and what I am, is this infinite love. And I'm knowing this for each person who is here this morning and who will be watching later on, that each one of us is present and is open to this loving divine spirit. And so I'm knowing that from this place of love, that I'm realizing that this morning is filled with its presence, with its power, with its grace. That this morning is unfolding in divine perfection. That spirit is guiding and directing Reverend Dr. Ron's message, filling his heart with its love, with its power. And knowing that as we open up to this message, that our awareness, that our consciousness grows deeper, allowing us to fill the space with this message of love, with wisdom, with knowledge, so that we can move on into our everyday livingness, living God's presence, God's power, God's grace. And so I'm thankful. I am so filled with gratitude for knowing this for each one of us. I release it into the love and the law, knowing that as my words speak all of this, that the law manifests all of this good and so much more. And so for all of this love, I just say, thank you, Spirit within. And so it is.
So it is. Well, that was great. Thank you so much.
Good morning, my friends. Being human. Being human brings with it the ability to experience endless potentials, both positive and negative. It brings the potential of vulnerabilities, imperfections, the capability of making mistakes. It brings with it the potential of profound feelings, the ability to feel loss, humiliation, sorrow, elation, hope, expectation, even love. The guardian of this amazing gift, being human, is the human mind, capable of travels outside and inside ourselves, to venture into the recognition of the spirit that lives in, flows through, and touches all, to open the aperture that allows us to share those mysteries with others, not just intellectually, but also emotionally, really share. Being human, vulnerable, and yes, amazing. Being human, absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. That was, as usual, terrific. So good morning again. And the title of my message this morning, if you haven't guessed it, is Being Human. And I want to begin with a quote from Meister Eckhart, who said, "Truly, it is in the darkness that one finds the light. So when we are in sorrow, then this light is nearest of all to us." So being human, all of us at some time are going to suffer a loss. We're going to encounter pain. It's all part of the package of being human. But like our first minister, Reverend Dr. Peggy Bassett, used to say, in life, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And what she was saying is just what I began with, that we're all going to experience pain. But what matters is what we do with that pain. We can learn from it. We can become more compassionate, and we can even become more humble. We can use disappointment as an opportunity to learn. And rather than wallowing in our hurt and being in a place of victimization, we can move beyond that. We can move to a place of strength. You know, Ernest Holmes tells us that it's not easy to hold our mind to a mental ideal when our experience is discordant. But he said we can do it. We can do it. So he's saying, you know, even when in tough times, it's not the easiest thing to remember that the God within is always expressing, and you know, we're part of that. It's not easy, but he said we can do it. You know, and something else that he said that I've always remembered, and again, I'm paraphrasing. He said, if you don't know the truth in difficult times, then you don't know the truth. And I thought too that we all have times, I know I have, where it is hard to know the truth. And that's why I'm here, Reverend Jen is here, Becky, Ginny, all our practitioners are here to be with you, to help you know what your truth is, that you're a divine being and a spiritual powerhouse. So I read an article this week by a fellow named Ralph Marston, and he wrote about the value of challenge. And he said, imagine that you lived in a world with no challenge. You could get whatever you want to have in your life, you know, all your dreams, whatever, without any effort, without any discipline, and without any commitment. And I'm sure if I could see all of you that are watching me now, a lot of you would be shaking your head and saying, that sounds great. And I think it probably would for a while. But then my guess is it would get pretty boring. That the value in achieving and having an achievement is overcoming challenges. That to have a reward with no effort isn't a reward. And I was thinking, recently I started to play what for me is a very new word game called Wordle. And the way it works is you pick a word, a 5-letter word, any word that you want. And when you press enter, the letters turn over. And if you get a gray letter, that means that letter's not part of the word. If you get a yellow letter, that means that it is, but it's not in the right order. And if you get a green, that means it's in the word and it's in the right order. And you have 5 more chances to guess the word using those clues. And it can be really difficult. And I've gotten really good at it. And one time, I picked my word and I took a guess at what the final word was, and I got it. And it felt empty. I didn't struggle. I didn't have any challenge with it. I didn't have anything to overcome. And it didn't feel as good as the times I struggled and came up with the right word. Challenge can be difficult and it can be demanding. Yet it's what makes value and fulfillment possible. I was thinking again as I was preparing this. So I have a volunteer job with our big church, with the home office, that's called the Regional Support Coordinator. And I have responsibility for all the churches in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. And I've been doing it for 6 years. So my term, it's a 3-year term and you can re-up once. So I'm complete, but I'm staying on until they replace me. And so I sent a letter to all of the ministers in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, telling them that I was complete and how much I enjoyed serving. And the job, there are parts of it that are wonderful, where you go and you're with somebody, you do an installation when a new minister comes in or an ordination, and those parts are fun. But there's a lot of difficult pieces to the job when there's conflict in the church between a board and a minister, or a minister and a practitioner, or whatever, or when ministers are going a difficult time, and it can be very fearful, with COVID. And I got all these letters back thanking me and, telling me what a good job I did. And it felt so good. It still does. I'm still getting them. It feels really good, but it feels good because the job was difficult and I stayed with it for 6 years. If it had been easy, it wouldn't have been very, very meaningful. We can choose to see ourselves as vital, as confident and powerful, because all of us have unlimited potential. And the only thing that stops us is our limited belief systems. Ernest Holmes, who founded the Center for Spiritual Living, wrote, "When the time comes that nothing goes forth from you other than that which you would be glad to have returned, then you have reached your heaven." I read a lot to prepare the message, and somebody I was reading this week, and I didn't write down their name, but somebody said, that brokenness allows us to become whole, that no one is as whole as somebody whose heart has been broken. Think about that. No one is as whole as somebody whose heart has been broken. Wholeness doesn't mean that we never experience pain, that we never experience sadness, that we never experience tears. It means that we've come to know the spiritual principle of acceptance and surrender. There's a fable about a town many, many years ago, a village that was famous for its beautiful porcelain, and especially its urns. And legend has it that when an urn was finished, there was one more step to it. And that step was the person preparing it, the artist preparing it, broke it. and then put it back together again with gold filigree. And what had been an ordinary urn now was a work of art. What seemed finished wasn't until it was broken. Mary Manning Morrissey writes about acceptance and having our dreams come to fruition. And she said, you know, before we accept defeat, we can take an inventory and we can ask ourselves, am I giving up too soon? Am I seeing this from the greatest perspective? So I want to give you two examples of seeing something from a different perspective. So here's the first one, and it's been around a while. You might have heard it before, but just imagine you've got an 18-year-old daughter and you sent her off to college and you haven't heard from her in several months. And then you get this letter. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm sorry I haven't written lately, but my things were destroyed in the dorm fire. My eyes are almost completely healed now, and the doctor assures me there'll be no permanent damage from the smoke. While the dorm is being rebuilt, I have moved in with my boyfriend. I think you met Roy when you were here for Parents' Weekend. I know how much you've always wanted grandchildren, so you'll be happy to know I'm expecting a baby at the end of the summer. Then the letter goes on. Please excuse this exercise in English composition. There was no dorm fire. My eyes are not damaged. I am not living with my boyfriend. I am not pregnant. However, I did receive a D in English and an F in French, and I wanted to to be sure you got this information in the proper perspective. So imagine if that were real, the difference in the parents when they began reading the letter and when they finished reading the letter. And it reminded me when I read that of the situation with my own daughter. And so when my ex-wife and I were divorced or separated, we each had the children for a week at a time. And my daughter was maybe 14, 15, or 16. And she was with my ex, and she called me up and whispered in the phone, I need to see you. And I drove over, and she came running out of the house into my car. And she said, oh, I did something so terrible. And I said, what? And she said, I can't tell you, I changed my mind. And I'm driving now, it's Maine in the wintertime. The roads are frozen and I'm gripping the wheel. I'm thinking I'm gonna turn it into sawdust. I'm gripping it so hard. And she's going, I can't, I don't want to talk about it. And so I pulled the car over and I said, you got me here, you have to tell me. And she said, okay, Dad. And now I'm thinking, oh my God, she must be pregnant or something. She said, okay, Dad, I'll tell you. I said, what? She said, last night I smoked marijuana. And I went, oh my God, is that all? You know, different perspective. Not you want to see your kids necessarily doing marijuana, but on the other hand, it was a lot better than her being pregnant, you know, a whole different perspective. What's important to us is how we deal with our difficulties and how we see them. So Pierre Villiat-Kahn, I've talked about him before. He was the former head of the Western Sufis. And he said at some point that of all of the many teachers, great teachers that he had met in Asia and India, he said, if you brought them to the US here and you got them a house, 2 cars, a spouse, 3 kids, a job, insurance and taxes, he said they would struggle. They would have a difficult time. And the point is, you know, I think it's probably easier to sit in a cave and meditate than it is to live the lives that you and I share. Jack Kornfield, the Buddhist teacher, said that the most frequent entry into the sacred is very often through suffering and dissatisfaction. He said, many a spiritual journey has begun through a difficult life. And he gives an example. And the example, and this is a true story, of a fellow who was living in Hong Kong with his wife, and their marriage was going south. And their youngest daughter had died of sudden infant death syndrome. They moved back to the US, and he and his wife separated. And he tried many different things to help him. He tried Tai Chi, all different things, and it just never felt right. And he was dating a woman who introduced him to a meditation master, and the meditation master invited him to come to a weekend meditation. And he took him up on the offer, and he said the first day they just sat hour after hour after hour. The second morning, when he began sitting again, in his mind's eye, he saw a picture of his daughter's grave and throwing dirt on the grave, and his heart just cracked, and he started to wail. And he said the other students were telling him to shh, shh. But the meditation master came over, told them to shush, and held him in his arms while he just cried. And he ended it by saying, that's how his spiritual journey began. He said, now it's 30 years later, and I'm the one who holds the ones who weep. Barbara Deangelis, in one of her books, writes about divine discontent and divine discomfort, rather. And here's how she defines divine discomfort. She says it's an inner pressure from something in you trying to bring itself forth into your life. She said it's a force that's compelling you to go to another level of serving, of helping, and of loving. But what happens is there's a battle that's going on between what wants to express through you and old habits, old patterns, old beliefs that are in the way. And she said, how many of us miss what's happening because we don't allow ourselves to feel, to tune in, and to be moved. And what we need to do is open ourselves to what's happening. Aldous Huxley once wrote, there's only one corner of the universe you can be certain of improving, and that's your own self. Until we wake up and begin to be conscious, we don't realize how unconscious we've been. Realizing you've been lost is very often the first step to being found. And Barbara offers what she calls a mantra, and I think what I would call an affirmation. And here it is. Today, I'm going to see what there is to see, to feel what there is to feel, and to know what there is to know. Rabbi Erwin Kula writes that very often when he's doing a workshop, he'll ask the people to define the word holy. And you could predict a lot of what he gets back. He gets back pious, serene, complete, untouchable, beyond or above every day. And he said, yeah, but the mystics teach us that holiness is available in every moment, in every place. But so often we miss those moments because they can be subtle. We need to make a space to hear the messages that are coming through us. Ernest Holmes said, we need to listen to our intuition because it's the voice of God within us. So I want to close with a quote from Tony Robbins that kind of sums up what we've been speaking about today. He said, the secret of success is learning how to use pain and pleasure instead of having pain and pleasure use you. If you do that, you're in control of your life. If you don't, life controls you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. God bless you and have a wonderful week.